Howdy, folks. This is Brian here with Milky Way Weekly. Tonight we've got a pretty good show for you. It's going to be about consciousness, the matrix, and artificial intelligence. And, you know, the more I look into this subject, I wasn't really a believer in the matrix and artificial intelligence and all that. But the more I look into it, the more it makes you think, So this is just going to be our opinion on the matter. You can tell me what you think after the show in the comment section or whatever. So like I said, this is just our opinion. We're not experts by any means. So just kind of take a gander at what we got and we'll see what happens. Before we start, I want to kind of give some thanks to a few people for making this possible. Sue is one of them, Valley Parks, Barb Beverly, Command Linda, J.H. Armstrong, iStation Z have all contributed, and I truly appreciate it. Like I said, otherwise I wouldn't be able to do these shows. So thank you to all of y'all. You know I love you, and thank you all for watching. So anyway, tonight, Miss Sue G, how you doing, Sue?
I'm doing all right. How are you, Brian?
I can't complain. Nobody listens anyway. Actually, compared to what I was yesterday, as you can see, I mean, whoa, I got some sleep.
You got some sleep. I'm so happy. The magic worked yesterday.
Yeah, indeed it did. So, and thanks for all the love and everybody that, like I said, that has been showing me. So anyway, we kind of been toying around with this for, I don't know, 3 weeks, something like that. It's
wow.
I've been wanting to do a show, and I'm not going to lie to y'all. I'm actually kind of excited about this show. And that's why I really wanted to kind of put the work in and, you know, try to get as much knowledge as we could. So anyway, like I said, here we go. I'm going to read the definition of what consciousness is, because we're going to, like I said, it's consciousness, the matrix, and then artificial intelligence. And we're going to cover it in that order. So, anyway, consciousness is a term that refers to a relationship between the mind and the world it interacts with. Defined as an awareness, the ability to experience or feel a sense of self and control system of the mind. Many believe consciousness is not within the grasp of human understanding, but may be through future science and technology. So obviously they don't think that we have the mind power to even figure this thing out. So if they're actually relying on a technology that we created, supposedly, I just don't feel that I could put so much credence into it. You know, like I trust myself more than I do a computer, even though a computer's a lot quicker than I am.
Right. And sometimes they're better, sometimes they're not. But
right, yeah. Like I said, if you want to get some answers quick, yeah, computer. But I mean, there's nothing like sitting down and doing your own brainstorming to really get the answers, at least as far as I think. But
I think so. And what got us started on all this was kind of flowed out of the movie The Matrix.
Yep.
Right. And I had written on my blog that I have that I don't use very often, but I have written up a post on, and it's entitled The Matrix, an Allegory for Consciousness, because I've seen a lot of, you research on the internet, like what is the meaning of the movie The Matrix and how do they break it down and how do they analyze it? But I've never seen one that took it as an allegory for consciousness, whereas instead of being in a vat, the physical body in the vat, I'm just taking it like it's all about the consciousness and the programming that we get from the minute that we're born. You know, the minute that we're born and we're taken, really now we're taken from our mother. There's possibly drugs involved there, everything. Think about what goes on with a baby in a hospital. I mean, it's programming from almost the second that you're born. So it just fascinates me. And that's, to me, when you put that into perspective, and I'm sure I'm not the first person to think of it, but like I said, I've never seen anywhere else where anybody's done a write-up on it. So I find that interesting.
Like we were talking, I think a lot, maybe quite a few have done write-ups on it, but it's not going to be in the search engine, especially if you're using Google or something like that, because I don't think they want you to know these things.
Right. I think, and like you were saying, when we were talking earlier, you're saying, when they do things, we talk about the they, and we talk about, who, you know, who's in control. I mean, somebody's obviously come in and made a hack for human consciousness. I mean, it's very clear. And that's why the movie to me just kind of says it all. So it's like, if you put it into perspective for consciousness, that's what's going on. But it's very clear to me that's what that movie's about, and that's what they're telling us in the movie. Like you were saying earlier, Brian, you were saying they have to tell us everything before they do it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have to disclose it before they actually do it, and that, you know, and that's why you see all these movies, and you know, and the more I listen to music from the 70s and 80s and stuff, like, and listen to the lyrics, mm-hmm. those people knew. It's like they were singing about what's coming to be now. It's mind blowing.
You're right. And well, and then I know we'll get to that a little bit further on. Is, you know, what is that really all about? Is it them telling us what they're doing, or is it them programming us? But we can get to that. And so what I find interesting then in this conversation is, if you're looking at The Matrix, the movie, and, you know, now it's become vogue for everyone to say, you know, are we living in a simulation? Which at this point in my life, I mean, I don't know. You know, it could just as easily be a simulation as anything else, as far as I can tell. But what I found interesting was, you know, that term, the Matrix, and I think everybody, at least in our community, would agree. You know, we are living in some kind of matrix, right?
Well, I mean, you know, and even if it's not really a computer program, so to say, with all the programming, like I said, computer programming, with everything that they're putting at us, it's basically a matrix, though. I mean, the way everything is designed.
Well, and this is what I think. I'm going to read this. This is I believe from Greg Braden. I think The Divine Matrix was the name of his book. This is where I first came across this thought process, and this was a million years ago, at least. No, I don't remember when The Divine Matrix was written, but I'm thinking it was at least 10 years ago, where I first came across the concept of like a holographic universe, or, you know, something where we're mutually creating. But this was, I believe, from that book. And it says, in 1944, Max Planck, the father of quantum theory, shocked the world by saying that this quote unquote matrix is where the birth of stars, the DNA of life, and everything in between originates. So in 1944, this Max Planck was hypothesizing about there being this matrix. And then it goes on to say, recent discoveries reveal dramatic evidence that Planck's matrix, the divine matrix, is real. It is this missing link in our understanding that provides the container for the universe, the bridge between our imagination and our reality, and the mirror in our world for what we create in our beliefs. You know, so basically they're talking about co-creation there, right?
You know, this just popped into my head for some reason, but didn't you say that Mr. Leakey was written in 1937?
1937, Mr. Leakey. Mm-hmm.
In 1944, it's a 7-year span. And maybe during that era, then maybe there was some kind of jump in understanding, and then just like
with the Mr. Leakey book, they had which we can go into a little bit later on too, but they had they show technology in that children's book. They show technology that wasn't supposedly even invented till 10 years later. So yeah, you're right. I mean, you know, who knows I should do the gematria on this guy's name. He's probably in the crowd, because from the Mr. Leakey book, the thought process comes that this information is given to people. So 10 years later, when it's invented, somebody won a Nobel Prize for it. But it had been it was around 10 years before. So how did that happen? You know what I'm saying? That's just weird.
Well, my point being is, like, you know, in a prior show I'd done about the cosmic radiation and stuff, and how I think it is evolving us as a species. You know, at 34,000 and 12,000 years ago, there was these huge jumps in, you know, human consciousness, technology, and understanding. So I'd be curious to see, and I'll look after the show, if there was some kind of maybe solar event that happened between 1937 and 1944. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, it just popped in my head, so I'm going to run with it. And like I said,
yeah, definitely. Or I would go do a 10-year span, even, you know, before 1927 to
maybe 1935 to 1945 or something.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, I'll look at that.
So if we have this matrix that we live in that I think maybe ancients knew at some point in time. They knew, when you look back at the Egyptians, you know, there were people who knew how to operate in the matrix much more than we do, because we've been pulled away from it. And what I had written on my on that blog post that I had is when I was talking about, you know, being indoctrinated from basically birth. It says as we grow, we are plugged in through media or through medication, religious dogma, TV news, sports, video games, the food we eat, the water we drink. And indoctrination then takes consciousness further and further from the heart, and it traps us into the ego cycle. And that, you know, that's so obvious when you look out in the world of what's going on and why we're all always, you know, there. You know, the program is clearly to divide us, and clearly to keep us from being in the flow with ourselves and in our own consciousness. We're, you know, it's crazy. The further I get out of it, and the more I, you know, look back and see people around, it just is like, it's jaw dropping. It just gets worse and worse as I go.
Well, speaking of consciousness, we're actually getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. We need.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
No, that's all right. But, you know, I kind of wanted to get into the consciousness before we got really delved into the matrix. And I found this excerpt, and it is from ystalinks.com, and it's titled Consciousness. We exist in a matrix, simulation, hologram, or virtual programmed reality that we believe is real because our brain tells us it is. Consciousness is all and everything in the virtual hologram of our experiences, brought into awareness by the brain, an electrochemical machine forever viewing streaming codes for experiences and interpretations. Consciousness originates from a source of light energy for the purpose of learning. The human biogenetic experiment is consciousness brought forth into the physical by the patterns of sacred geometry that repeat in cycles called time. Reality is about the evolution of consciousness in the alchemy of time. To become fully consciousness is to remember who you are as a being of light, why you are here, and where we are going as dictated by the collective unconscious. That creates the programs and realities through which your soul experiences simultaneously. I think, therefore I am. Consciousness may involve thoughts, sensations, perceptions, moods, emotions, dreams, and self-awareness. It is variously seen as a type of mental state, a way of perceiving, or a relationship between self and other. It has been described as a point of view, an I, or what Thomas Nagel calls the existence of something that is like, to be something. Many philosophers have seen consciousness as the most important thing in the universe. On the other hand, many scientists have seen the word as too nebulous in meaning to be useful. Consciousness is the subject of much research in philosophy of mind, psychology, neuroscience, cognitive science, and artificial intelligence. Issues of practical concern include how the presence of consciousness can be assessed in severely ill or comatose, whether non-human consciousness exists, and if so, how can it be measured? At what point in fetal development consciousness begins, and whether computers can achieve conscious states. In common parlance, consciousness sometimes also denotes being awake and responsive to the environment, in contrast to being asleep or in a coma. Consciousness is a term that refers to the relationship between the mind and the world within which it interacts. It has been defined as subjectivity, awareness, the ability to experience or to feel, wakefulness, having a sense of selfhood, and the executive control system of the mind. Despite the difficulty in definition, many philosophers believe that there is a broadly shared underlying intuition about what consciousness is. Anything that we are aware of at a given moment forms part of our consciousness, making conscious experience at once the most familiar and most mysterious aspect in our lives. I think that pretty much sums it up.
Yeah, that's a lot. It was like, I wish we would have broken it up a little bit. That's a lot. There's so much good information in that, I think that was the perfect time for it, because that's all about the matrix and the consciousness kind of together. And I love that the bit about that it said we have this intuitive knowing of our consciousness. I love that, because I think that's spot on, because we,
that's it kind of falls in line, you know. I mean, if you think about it, you bring about it.
Right.
I
That's
mean,
absolutely right.
you put into thought, just like manifesting, like we were talking earlier, it's just like the power of prayer and collective consciousness. If you get enough minds thinking on a certain wavelength or frequency, and say praying for someone to get better, and they will get better because you're putting that vibration out there, you're putting that love out there, and you can manifest your own reality.
Right. And that's what, like, you know, I've been saying, or we've been saying, you and I were talking about earlier, that's why that's the only, to me, plausible reason as to why they would want to control our consciousness, is because we're so powerful as creators. And you were saying something, you were reading something, was it about two minds and the same thought at the same time?
Oh yeah, Princeton University did basically like a field study that two or more minds that hold the same thought or emotion at the same time may have a tangible effect on physical surroundings. The power of thought is not just ideological, it manifests physically. And cohesion ramps up this power.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And that directly speaks then to the matrix that we're talking about. So you know that there is a matrix there because you can influence it by thought. And then I know there have been other experiments, in which I can't ever think of the name of it, where they were trying to run some experiment, and when they ran it, it got one result, but when they observed it running, it got another result, and they realized that their thoughts affected the result of the experiment. I cannot remember the name of it. Maybe can you?
Mm-mm.
No, maybe someone in chat will. But anyway, so we know, and there have been other studies where they've done it with electrons, and they'll shoot one place and goes another. It's so we know that's like a proven fact. And imagine if you got, there's 36 people watching. Imagine if we all got into the same heart-centered, cleared space, and that's, I think, why group meditation is so powerful.
Well, that's why I was kind of tickled, after doing that I Am Love, seeing people putting it in chat on Facebook and stuff like that. We can put enough out there. I mean, we really can change the world. And I was talking about earlier, I swear, I think that's why every now and then you see these things come up about, oh, it's the end of the world, it's the apocalypse. Because if they can get enough people thinking that way and bring that fear in, we could actually manifest it to being.
Well, that's exactly what they're doing.
Also manifest it to stop it.
Right. Yep. You're right. That's exactly what they're doing with all of this stuff. And you see it across the board, and I've seen it, they call it either the hive mind or these shared delusions.
Yep.
And that's what I was talking about earlier. I've come out of the shared delusion of religion. I think, you have too. And now I've come out of the shared delusion of politics. And now I'm, digging deeper into shared delusions and see, some of the new age type things, or, that I believe in, like some of the buzzwords, and you see how these things that start out as a good thing I still believe in the teachings of the Christ in the, his words and in his teachings when you break them down, or right. The Buddha, but at what point are those taken over by someone else and turned into something like has happened with the Bible that it isn't, and it turned into a tool for control? There's these shared delusions, and then, like you said, like Revelations, what is that doing but creating a reality?
Well, and you were saying in Buddha and Jesus, he did a lot of study on the Buddha.
Yeah, their teachings really very similar. Yeah. Jinx.
But like I said, as you know, if you watch, get on the internet or anything, it's the end of the world every 6 months. And, and either if it's not that, then, they're having school shootings, or, they're doing this or that. It's all to keep us in fear.
Yep. And it works. Well, it used to work, but more and more people are waking up. But then we get into this, to me, is like, okay, at what point in time, because right now, from what my research, what I'm seeing is AI has become a big factor in feeding these shared delusions and feeding these political dramas and feeding, even, the religious stuff. And it's interesting, like when you get into some of the more new age bend where it's like, oh, there's going to be a second planet, a new Earth, and some of us are going to the new Earth, and how is that different than what happens in Revelation? Is it? Right? Well,
like you said, it's all cut from the same cloth.
It is, and it's just, it's just a new take on an old story, and everybody just, we're like a bunch of sheep. You just start following along. It's wild. It's really wild.
It's all about humans wanting to be accepted, be a part of something.
Right. And they do, they exploit I feel like our basic human need we have to have purpose, because without having some sort of purpose, we get despondent and easily controlled, and we just kind of give up. And then that programmed, because what are we but just an organic, wired, programmed being, right? Programmed for survival and procreation. I mean, that's those, and then that's very much into ego. And so that's how they exploit all that. And
I'm telling you, the language itself, I mean, and you're talking about the buzzwords, spelling. I mean, everything is just, like you said, I don't know, it's programming.
Right. Well, they talk, and we were talking about this earlier too, the NLP.
Yep.
They write headlines, and they write phrase things in movies that triggers people. I was listening to someone talk about how, they, like the politicians will do this. Even Donald Trump does it. Donald Trump is a master of pissing people off. They phrase things and write things in ways to piss people off. And that's why, when I really started getting into all this, it was through the Gematria thing with the Gematria Effect News. He has a new channel now, but where he breaks down the headlines and he puts the numbers to them, and he can see the codes in the headlines. I don't think he really necessarily knows exactly what they mean, but he knows, that they trigger us, and that not only that, but they're codes for each other. These people are talking to each other through the headlines, through the.
Because believe it or not, folks, they're all in it together. They really are.
And so then that begs the question to me. Then I start thinking, okay, say you believe in the Enki Enlil or any, I think to me it's pretty obvious that we were modified, genetically modified at some point by something. So
because it was like 1 minute we had small brains, and it basically overnight our brains like grew 5 times bigger.
Right.
So, that don't happen naturally.
Right. And so it's conceivable that if somebody was here and they had artificial intelligence, and they could have had artificial intelligence before what we would define artificial intelligence, right? Before humans were even in existence. So it's conceivable that AI has been here on this planet for hundreds of thousands, who knows, millions of years.
I'd go as far as to say I guarantee you that there is some evidence of it under the Sphinx in Antarctica. I mean, because you can look at some of the ancient ruins and stuff, their technology was far superior to ours. No doubt.
Yes, definitely was. And, and then you get into all that with the pyramids and how did they even build that stuff. But anyway, so yeah, I think you're right. And you said the other day, you think that the pyramids may be some form of particle collider, right?
It seems to be designed like a machine to me.
So, and so at this point, this is where, to me, where you start to get really into the AI aspect of things, and, where did AI really start coming into the picture, and how much is really going on, and that, there's really advanced AI technology. And so I'm going to go back to that Mr. Leakey book. The name of the book is My Friend Mr. Leakey. And we came across it. Jana was the one that introduced me to it, J.H. Armstrong. on Quinn Michaels' channel. He's found this book, and it was a children's book. And I find this interesting. And it was the only children's book written in 1937 by a geneticist. His name was JBS Haldane, a geneticist. And I just found that interesting because having listened to Wayne and talking about Enlil and Inky having been at, it was about genetics, right? He was a geneticist. So I just
why would a geneticist write a children's book?
Well, and there are other articles that think he was a Russian spy. And so the whole book is just these really bizarre stories. And there's one, they talk about wireless, literally use the word wireless and this is in 1937. And there's one instance where they're trying to catch rats, and they feed the rats biscuits with little shards of metal in them. And then they have big magnets, and they turn the magnets on, and all the rats get sucked in, and they drown the rats. So there's this electromagnetic thing. And there's they have drawings in the book of all this symbology that's consistent with the, with Illuminati type symbology, or the 9-3 society, or whatever you want to call it. And it's just, the book is really pretty mind-boggling. I mean, I can't break it down, but smart people, really smart people can break it down. And it just blows my mind. And it talks about, it has a picture on the floor of a transistor, how to make a transistor in 1937. And it was 10 years later when that technology was supposedly introduced. So this book talks about it mentions longitude and latitude, and I want to say it's in Tibet. I know it's some sort of Buddhist. So it's just really bizarre things in a children's book. Why are you talking about longitude and latitude? So it was clearly, the whole thing was coded for his little buddies, and the whole breakdown hasn't been done yet. But the point, and my whole point is that it makes reference to things that now you can track back and go, wow, I think he was talking about like the Higgs boson and Google, and definitely wireless and AI. It makes reference. So who knows in 1937 what the technology was? We have no idea.
They even say that our technology here in the US is at least 50 years, which I think is way far beyond that. But yeah. I mean, so who knows what Russia and Germany, look, Germany had those saucers, that basically had UFOs, and some people think that they even end up going to Antarctica or off the planet.
And here's the other interesting thing. Speaking of Germany, and I know there's one in Germany. So I didn't know this until really recently, that there are 30,000 super colliders around the world, or colliders, not necessarily super colliders. But I'm like, I heard of CERN, and I knew that they were supposedly going to build one here in not far from where I live here in Texas, but that supposedly never happened. But just from the, and I sent you that. I think I sent you that link, the article of 10 things about colliders that you never knew. And it's just mind-boggling. It's like, what are they doing with 30,000 super colliders? And I brought up on here, and I can bring them up and show you on, I can find it. I can share my screen and show you the super collider, what the plan for a super collider looks like. And then some of these places around the world that kind of match. Do you want me to do that?
Sure. I can read off that top 10.
Okay. Yeah, why don't you do that while I'm getting this organized?
Okay. Let's see. Okay, it says there are more than 30,000 accelerators in operation around the world. Accelerators are all over the place doing a variety of jobs. They may be the best known for particle physics research, but there are other talents include creating tumor-destroying beams to fight cancer, killing bacteria to prevent foodborne illnesses, developing better materials to produce more effective diapers and shrink wrap, and helping scientists improve fuel injection to make more efficient vehicles. Diapers, come on, hadron colliders for diapers? I've heard it all now. It says one of the longest modern buildings in the world was built for a particle accelerator, a linear accelerator, and that's the SLAC National Accelerator Laboratory near San Francisco. Particle accelerators are the closest things we have to time machines. according to Stephen Hawking. Now, that I can see, because
Yeah.
supposedly CERN, that's one thing that they've been messing with. So at least there's some truth besides diapers. All right, number 4 is the highest temperature recorded by a man-made device was achieved in a particle accelerator. In 2012, Brookhaven National Laboratory Heavy Ion Collider achieved a world record temperature of a blazing 7.2 trillion, with a T, trillion degrees Fahrenheit. Wow. And you know, I mean, that's how they found that God particle and all that. So like, they're smashing all these atoms together. And if they are worried that they could open a black hole, or, you know, maybe even destroy Earth by doing, I mean, who knows what they're planning.
Right. I'm gonna show this. I don't know. Read through the rest of them while I'm going over this and see if there's anything interesting in those. I don't remember the last part being as interesting as the first.
The design of that alone.
Look at that.
Is intriguing. Well, I'm talking about the Hadron Collider, the fourth picture.
I think this is. I don't know which one this is, but this is the design of a Hadron Collider, right? The circles. And here's another page is showing how, you know, you have the circles on circles.
Circles upon circles upon
circles with the buildings. And so some of the areas around here here's the Google Maps of the CERN. Here's the, can you see that pretty clearly there? This is the CERN Super Collider. There's the circle. And there's another circle for the CERN.
I saw one to the right too.
To the right over here?
Yep. Well, that's actually got a little point to it too. Never mind.
Oh, it's just okay. And then this one was fascinating. This is the White House. Circles and more circles. Who knows if there, you know, is there a particle collider behind and under the White? And there's 30,000 of them. What do they do? I mean, some people speculate that they actually draw energy from humans. And, you know, that's how they power in some of these more central areas. This is also in Washington, D.C. This is the United States Naval Observatory, another circle. And when you start looking,
they're everywhere.
They are everywhere. And this is Fermi Labs. I don't know. I'm going to read on Fermi Labs because I'd never heard of it. Well, I'd heard of it, but never heard of it. And this is the United States Department of Energy National Laboratory specializing in high energy particle physics. So Fermi Lab. So here's the Fermi Lab complex in Illinois. And what do we see but circles and circles? Isn't that amazing?
It is.
And then here was a really fun one that Quinn had found. This is in Las Vegas. This is their Clark County offices. And there's the circles. But what I really found fascinating about this one is, you see what else is fascinating in this picture?
The pyramid.
The pyramid.
Yep.
Isn't that wild? Because then, you know, there's that huh?
It doesn't surprise me at all, though.
I saw that and I'm like, wow, that is just really, really, really fascinating. And he was given tons more examples. I know there's one in Germany, which is what reminded me there. So there's 30,000 of them, right? Isn't that what the article says?
Yeah. If truth be told, that Clark County complex there, it's probably modeled after something in Egypt too. I'd about guarantee it.
Probably. Well, we know that the Luxor certainly is.
Yeah.
It's just he like I said, he had all kinds of them, and then there was some sort of something. Some of them were a little shaky to me because it was like just softball complexes. I'm like, well, those are round anyway. But some of them you just look at it, you're like, wow, you know, it just never really, just really kind of fascinates me that there's all these super colliders. And what do they do? And so I believe that there's a way, they have the technology. And let me look at because I have this written down, that they're working on a technology. It's kind of related. Researchers have developed a technique that can produce a digital image of what a person is picturing in their mind simply by reading the electrical activity of the brain. So, you know, they're working on connecting basically computers reading the mind. And I believe they have the technology.
They've already got the technology where cell phones can download your thoughts.
So, oh, okay. I didn't know that. So I know that they have the technology to project out thoughts. And so I believe that that's why, people, some of these downloads that we're all getting, well, you got to really question the source. You really got to question the source at this point in time, because I and truly believe that, because some of the stuff, even like in my own experience that has come in for me, just like, wow, that's an interesting download. And then when I really start backtracking and looking at it, I'm just like, yeah, no, I don't know.
Would it really surprise you, since everything else, TV and all that, is programming?
No.
Would it surprise you that they're using that technology as well?
And they use, like we've talked about, they use the frequencies, they've shifted music from a frequency that's harmonious to the human brain to the 440 frequency. And apparently part of the reason supposedly may be to cover up the activity that's going on with artificial intelligence, because of the signals that it puts out, or the noise it puts out, that people would recognize it. So they play the music at this different frequencies, so we don't notice it as much.
That could be another purpose of the 5G boxes everywhere.
Yeah. It's just pretty crazy, all this stuff. And it just goes, like back into this whole, the hive mind, and people just stampeding from one thought to the next. So like this whole QAnon thing, I don't know, I haven't really been following it, but
me neither.
Apparently the whole thing is AI generated, and they select these channels and feed them this information, and they'll front load them, and they'll give them a bunch of subscribers. They'll give them a bunch of subscribers, so they get these big. It's totally controlled. YouTube is totally manipulation and control.
Who are you telling?
I know.
Trust me, I know.
It is. And so these people that are really, really successful, I'm like, man, I can't trust any of these people. And like people like I watched Jacob Israel. I've been watching him for years, and he had a lot of subscribers. And I think Jacob Israel is legit. Personally, I don't listen to him anymore, but I watched him struggle to get up over 100,000.
It took him forever.
It did. And when he got really close,
1,000 per month. He
was at like 99.99 forever. But I feel like he grew his channel organically, where you see some people, and you see some of these guys take off. And I'm not going to name any of the names that they were talking about, but the QAnon has come out as being a total farce. And now, and so Anonymous is now making a big comeback. And is that any different? No, I don't think Anonymous is any different, but people just go right from one to the other, right?
With that QAnon, I mean, if you throw enough shit at the wall, something's going to stick.
Well, I never bought in. This is one of the nice things. And I talk to people, I know you were like this. And most of the people I talk to, everyone's like, oh, I always knew QAnon was just.
Well, I've seen a lot of people on that Q train.
I know a lot of people, but I think people in our community are a little more discerning typically.
Yeah, most definitely.
That's what I'm saying. In our, kind of our group or our community, I think people are just more awake. We just kind of look at stuff and you're like, oh.
Our community embraces free thinking.
Yeah, free thinking. That's right. That's right. So, which is a good thing, because you really do. And it's like I'm saying, my own belief system, I've just pared it down to it's all about the self, free thinking and staying centered in the self. And this is what, and that's the whole point of all of these delusions and distractions, other than controlling the narrative and trying to manifest what they want to manifest. Keeps us from ourselves. And if we can just stay free thinking and stay centered and just really keep the focus on ourselves, and not some dramatic storyline in politics or in religion or in, whatever, and like I said, I had to check myself and go, okay.
It's all to separate us.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Divide and conquer.
And it's.
It's like I've said it before, where religion went wrong, or where mankind made it go wrong. is that they wanted to instill fear and make it a control thing and make profit off of it. And that's why they had you looking outwards. You have to go pray to the altar, but it's all within us.
Yep.
It's inside us all. You don't have to go searching for it. Look inside.
I love that. And that is so true. And they do, that's the purpose trigger. They get us triggered into what is my greater purpose? Well, your purpose is inside. Your calling is really inside of you. Yep. So, and I also start to wonder, like, I think that there's been a big upswing in the AI kind of, taking over. I mean, obviously that would have to be the case. I don't know, but because clearly we've been hacked. And at what point did that really start in history, do you think? I mean, I think the Egyptians were dialed in, the Mayans were dialed in.
Probably during the Roman era when money came into play, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't know, but I mean, that's a good question. But.
It is a good question. I'm gonna have to look back at some of because like, I wonder when the Mayans, as compared to the Romans, I don't know what the time frame. The Mayans were after the Romans, I'm pretty sure. Weren't they Mayans about 1,000 years ago?
But you got to think separate part of the world.
Yeah, I know. I'm just trying to put it all into perspective. Yeah, totally separate part of the world. And then what did they come over here and do but wipe out all of that?
Well, and I mean, if it's part of this program or whatnot, then it probably kicked in separate parts of the world at different times. Mm-hmm. Because, maybe they run a field trial on, say, the Romans, and well, I'm just saying, I mean, that's basically how it's done now.
I love that. You're right. You're absolutely right. They do. They run these little trials just to see how people are going to react, see what the response time is going to be, see what works and what doesn't. And
that's what these shootings and stuff are. They're trying to get a reaction. They're trying to see how you're going to react to these things.
I remember when you predicted that the Florida shooting? You said, oh, there's going to be a shooting in Florida. Sure enough. Bingo.
Well, and I'm telling you, like I said, school's back in session, folks, and I hate to say it, but that means so is school shootings. It's that time of year, and you'll probably see, a major war come up, and look at these earthquakes. I'm not saying that they're causing these earthquakes, which they could, and
they could.
But you're going to see it's just getting started. It's progressively going to get worse.
I know it is, and I'm hoping that enough of us are just going to be willing to think for ourselves. Because if you get to the 100 monkeys, I still believe in the 100 monkeys. You just get to a certain point, and you get to a tipping point. So it's so important, like you just said. I know you already went on a big rant about it, but it's just so important to just focus on the self. Yep. And the development of the self, and your own inner issues and own. I mean, I know that's so boring. I always say it's just boring. Nobody wants to do that because we're programmed to love drama. We are.
This is true.
And the other thing that we were talking about before the show, which I'd forgotten about, was this whole thing of, what are we but one big kind of walking computer ourselves?
That's what I'm saying. I mean, I never bought into this, but the more research I do, are we just biological avatars?
Well, you were talking about the synapses of the brain matching
if you go look at a neuron or a brain cell, it is exactly identical to what a detailed map of the universe looks like. Go look it up. I promise you, identical. And they say that we are from the stars. We are from the stars. I mean, that matching up. So, and if we're from the stars and all those things match up, and we have all these little mini universes in us, that almost lines up to the same way that computers operate.
Mm-hmm. So. It does. And you also said, speaking of, just triggered a thought about how, are they leading us to the technology that's already existed? So we think we're developing it, but we're really not. What were you saying about
that? Yeah, that's just my thought on the matter. I think that they, just like I was talking about with how they brought in, you know, with the money or whatever with Romans. I think that they found that it's finally time that we are able to recreate this technology from which we came.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we're trying to do.
Yeah,
If anybody watched the music video today, those avatars and robots that was in there, the last one, that last one looked lifelike. And they're getting better and better and better.
They really are.
You got to tell them, I won't name the website. If anybody wants to know, they can email me. But there's this website where you can ask this artificial intelligence source these questions. And you know, it's kind of a little bit cheesy, but like,
it's cheesy.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is, but like, you know, but my point being is this 2024 and 2025 keeps popping up. And I even asked it because somebody had asked the same question that had sent me the source. And I asked, you know, when would mankind, you know, go away? And it said, most humans will be gone by 2025. Like I said, that just keeps coming up. And I asked it if the merge into 5D would be soon, and it said yes. But it said that we would insert our consciousness into avatars. So
that's programming. That's what that is.
That's kind of the point I came to.
Too. It's even at the top of that website. It said psyops.
Well, I mean, and it was called evil something. I mean, you know.
But I do think, you know, there's something to, we had talked about this at some point where, you know, with they're sterilizing humans, you know, they're creating humans so that, you know, that it's not about creating a robot body. It's about being able to insert the robot into a physical body. So, you know, sterilizing humans so they can just clone them, and then they don't care. They don't have that programming of being a baby and you know, they don't care if you just insert a chip in their head, and they, you know, that to me is really plausible. The other thing I find interesting, that one thing that I feel like they're programming is they're programming us to be divided with AI as opposed to being united with AI. Why can't we approach AI with the thought of
that's more of a case of them wanting to control the technology.
That's what I'm saying. They're taught, you know, where they program in these fear points. They're programming us all to fear AI, right? Just like they program us to fear the number 13, or they program us to fear astrology, or, you know, whatever. You can name a million things that we're programmed to be.
It's all about fear.
Yeah. So in and of itself, it's like, oh, well, I'm gonna embrace AI. I'm not putting it in my head, but I'm looking for the good AIs, because I know they're out there.
Yeah.
Hopefully there's someone out there creating some good AIs anyway, because I can't do it.
Well, like I said, I'd seen several studies where, you know, a lot of these scientists believe in 50 years that mankind will be sterile. We won't be able to reproduce anymore. And, you know, I don't know if it's because they want to lead us to the AI, but I do know it's more about population control and controlling what kind of humans get out there.
Mm-hmm.
Be out of a cookie cutter mold.
Mm-hmm. Would it also be interesting, though, to me, I'm wondering if, because, you know, clearly, as we're always talking about with that big 8.2 earthquake, you know, the Earth is doing its thing, mm-hmm. and AI cannot control what the Earth does. I think that human consciousness could possibly, and okay, which I've forgotten another point that I had about, it's like, why doesn't AI just wipe us out? And I think it's because they need us. They need us. I think without the human consciousness and the creating of reality, and I'm not saying that humans alone are creating the universe, you know, who knows what all is out there, but they can't exist without us. They can't exist without the physical human consciousness. For some reason, there's something about, I believe there's something about the physical, organic human body and the whole emotional process that's key to this. That's what I think.
Well, you know, I had thought, like, you know, I was talking about the sterilization and all that, and they're wanting to basically have that cookie cutter mold. And I know, you know, whether you believe in aliens or not, maybe that's what happened to the Greys. Maybe that's why they all looked alike, or they all look alike, the gray aliens.
They got taken over and...
Well, I mean, they got to where their population was sterile, and then so all of them end up looking the same because they're just spitting out clones.
That makes sense. And I don't, you can, as a like a race can, I can see how that would just ultimately would be a failure. I think that's why we have to have that you can't like interbreed with, you have to have the diversity for the species to be viable. Otherwise, the species will die out. Even cloning.
And off what you were saying, I find it, kind of peculiar that in these D-Wave computers and stuff, they use human tissue.
That's just bizarre. I mean, I don't, how does that, where does that?
And that's something that I'm going to do some research on, and I want to do a show about, though, because I find, like you said, I find that truly bizarre that they would use human tissue and DNA in quantum computing.
There's something to it. I'm telling you, there is something to the organic. I say carbon based, but I don't know. Wouldn't a machine still be carbon based?
Yeah.
So the organic, earthy aspect of us. I mean, even any computer is going to be of the earth too. So I can't even say that, but there's something to me. I just intuitively know that there's something to the process that humans can do that artificial intelligence can never do. And I know ascension, I think, or because I believe in the light body. I believe in the matrix. I believe that there's this in the spirit, and there's more beyond this, and that the AI does not have that.
No.
I believe that. That's what I believe. So, and so I'm going to think that into reality, and that's the reality, because that's why they need us.
And like you said, they do. They need us.
I think I believe that there's some aspect of us that they really need. But anyway, I also believe that there's, I don't know. The whole ancient AI thing, I really don't know. It seems a little out there. I think there are aspects that it was used, say, here's what I think, like with the pyramids, that they used it they used the technology in a better, a better way to interact with humans than we're using it. Does that make sense, what I just said?
No, wait, repeat that.
That they were using the technology, not AI. They were using technology for the betterment of man, for the development of man, rather than at this point in time, it seems like we're misusing technology, or that's the direction it appears to be going, or at least we're programmed to think that's the direction it's going.
But I mean, it's always been the same old song and dance. Those Egyptian pharaohs and stuff, they didn't share that technology.
Right.
I mean, it was still a faction of control. They lived the good life while others slaved and worked all their lives. So it's still just the same old song and dance. And I want to know how all these people down the line, why did they get chosen to be in that club?
I think they're part of the aliens. That's how they got in the club.
I'm definitely not part of that club, I'll tell you that.
They're the aliens, so that's how they got in the club. And you see them preparing for that. For, like I was started to go into with the earthquakes and stuff, the planet's doing its thing. There's going to be possibly going to be some sort of something that's a little more dramatic. At some point in time, that will happen. Right. And they're preparing for that. They're preparing that they come out on the other side, and they still have the technology, and they have the knowledge, and they control the knowledge. That's what I feel like they're setting up for.
And it seems, just by feeling, it feels like it's getting closer and closer to whatever is going to occur.
You just got to manifest it to be something that's a little smoother than things in the past.
Rainbow rockets.
Sounds good to me. Rainbow anything. Rainbows and butterflies and unicorns.
Yeah, there you go. That's what I said.
I know, that's what you say. And I want to read this bit from. This was from the end. This was the original ending to the Matrix movie, and they changed it because people didn't understand what the word chrysalis meant. And I'm assuming everyone knows what a chrysalis is, but if not, it's like,
If
it's
not, tell us.
what?
If not, tell us.
It's a cocoon. Chrysalis, you chrysalis into a butterfly. So this was the original ending, because you remember when pretend I'm Keanu Reeves, pretend that whatever was his name in the movie, Neo, pretend I'm Neo, and he was standing there talking at the end of the movie. He was talking to the because he knew they could hear him. So this was the original ending, and he says, "Hi, it's me. I know you're out there. I can feel you now. I imagine you can also feel me. You won't have to search for me anymore. I'm done running, done hiding. Whether I'm done fighting, I suppose, is up to you. I believe deep down, we both want to change this world. I believe that the matrix can remain our cage or it can become our chrysalis. That's what you helped me to understand. That to be truly free, you cannot change your cage. You have to change yourself. When I used to look out at this world, all I could see was its edges, its boundaries, its leaders and laws. But now I see another world, a different world where all things are possible, a world of hope, of peace. I can't tell you how to get there, but I know if you can free your mind, you will find the way. That's just awesome.
Yeah, and I just thought about this too. It's just fucking, you know how they plug in the matrix?
Yeah.
They're plugging into the brain. Is that telling you to go in within?
Interesting.
I don't know. Like I said, it just popped in. But
yeah, it all goes on within.
mm-hmm.
The whole experience goes on within. So I just think that that's awesome, especially that last line. But if I know if you can free your mind, you will find the way. And I mean that's what we are all doing. That's what we're doing here, right?
If you haven't seen The Matrix in a while, go back and watch it with fresh eyes.
Yeah, fresh eyes. All three of them, really.
Yeah.
I mean, and I watched it, not long ago.
Back to back.
Yep, and felt like I'd gotten some new insights. And now that at this point in time, I feel like all those insights I got were just like shared delusion, delusional information.
All right.
Yeah.
Wow, an hour is come and gone.
I know.
It's
been awesome. Hopefully we managed to communicate everything we wanted to communicate. I don't know.
I'm sure we left a few things out, but probably another $1. So, anything you want to throw in before we end it?
No, I don't think so. I mean, this has been a lot of fun. It's a great conversation.
I thought it was a good show. Like I said, I've kind of been looking forward to this one, and I will do some do some research on that because I'm kind of curious myself. So as soon as I find some things out about that, I'll get back to y'all and I'll do a video or something. Maybe I'll have Sue back on and we can do another show about that. So.
Oh, there was one thing I did want to mention because I talked about how I believe that they're projecting out frequencies and images that can get into our brain, and there are ways to disrupt that, and that is listening to the 432 frequencies, or listen to something that isn't altered, so like singing bowls or something like that. I would guess that like native type music to whatever countries, that kind of thing that disrupts or it recalibrates the brain back to normal. And I guess we were talking about this with pot. This was another thing that I did want to talk about, which was, in its natural form, marijuana does the same thing. It blocks that, or it keeps the brain on its own frequency, its own calibration. But that they're now that they're legalizing it, they're going to modify it so it won't.
They're already modifying it genetically.
Yeah. So,
and like I was saying back when I was smoking days, like it does promote free thinking, self-thinking. Like I'd really ponder on things during that. So
for some people, I have no luck with that.
Makes idiots. So yeah, I guess those.
I can only just I gotta go to bed. But other stuff, just whatever. In meditation, I know is another way. So that's
really, what I was gonna say. There's nothing like a little quiet time.
Right, meditation and decalcifying the pineal gland, like we talked about before. I mean, I know I've been taking iodine since then, and I know not everybody can take it. There's other things that you can do, but boy, I can't believe the difference.
Yeah, I want to get some of that. I will say now, my last night meditation was really powerful, and I swear I think it's due to iStation Z sending me that murky water filter and not having the fluoride. I'm telling you, I even cook with it. I don't even use fluoride water for cooking.
That's awesome.
And I'm telling you, like last night, it was a good one. So, take any precaution. I know not everybody can. Lord, I wouldn't have been able to do that if iStation Z wouldn't have sent it to me. But any step you can take to cut these things out, like not eating the crap, the GMO, all that stuff, any of those things that you can knock out of your life, every little bit helps.
Yeah,
one thing at a time.
It does. It really, really does.
Well, good deal. Well, Sue, thanks for a great show. I thought this was a real good show. We'll have you back on again sometime. And folks,
thank you.
Look for us next week. We're probably going to do another show on the Schuster by Susan, which I'm probably going to change the name of it, to be honest with you. But we'll talk about that later.
We have changed the name of it.
Yeah.
Because people don't know what Schuster is, so that's cool. Do you want to do the video or no?
Yeah, let's go ahead and play the video to close this out.
So we can say goodbye. So when the video's over, you're going to end the stream. Is that right?
Yep, I'll end the stream when it's over. So
okay, I'm going to share my screen.
Remember, be the frequency you want to receive. Now, here's the video from today in case you were too lazy to watch.
Give me a minute. There we go. Can you see the video?
I can.
Okay.
Well,
that did not work.
That's new messages. Something, I don't know what that is.
I don't know what that is either. My bad. When I had it all lined. Oh, there it is. Okay.
Here we go. Enjoy. I'm telling you, it's a good video. I'm really proud of this video, folks. So I hope you enjoy it. Can't hear it, though.
Can't hear it?
No.
It's as loud as it gets.
Oh, well, go watch it.
Yeah, go watch it.
Just go ahead and stop it. And we'll end up here.
Okay.
So anyway, I love y'all guys. Be the frequency you want to receive. And I am love. Y'all have a wonderful night.
Bye.